Hi everyone, it's Maria Barcelos, Executive Director of the Gatehouse, and today I thought I would share with you some information about our programs and services and how the Gatehouse got started. So our vision is a future where those impacted by childhood sexual abuse can heal and reclaim their voices. Oftentimes at the Gatehouse, we talk about the first thing that is lost to a survivor is their voice, their ability to share what happened to them and express themselves freely. A lot of times survivors will hold on to the secret of the abuse for decades. Our mission is to provide support, resources, and community to those impacted by childhood sexual abuse, and we do that through providing peer-to-peer support group programs, education and training to persons who want to learn about the impact of abuse, and those who want to become peer facilitators. We have over 100 volunteers that help us deliver our programs. Since 1998, the Gatehouse has been a safe place for survivors to have their voice heard. It was the entrance to the psychiatric hospital previously. It's an old Victorian house that was restored through the vision of Raymond Lockhart, who is a retired professor of Humber College. And he looked up at the Gatehouse and thought, wouldn't it be neat if we could get that place and restore it and make it into a center for survivors to come and share their story? That's exactly what happened. With the help of 400 volunteers and community partners, they were able to restore the house into what it is today. And since '98, we've been in operation as the Gatehouse, a place where survivors can heal and reclaim their voice. Oftentimes we are asked about the statistics and what's the prevalence of childhood sexual abuse, and it's 1 in 3 girls and 1 in 5 boys, depending on which study you follow. 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before their 18th birthday. And sexual assault is considered an underreported crime or a dark figure of crime because not a lot of survivors do come forward to tell their story. 70% of adult survivors that are accessing the Gatehouse services reported being abused for the first time between the ages of 5 and 10 years old. 65% of those adults never told anybody as a kid, and they held onto that secret for decades. In 2019, we conducted 304 intake assessments in person with survivors, and 172 survivors completed our adult peer-to-peer group programs. 57 people completed our Partners Workshop, which is a unique program in itself. It's a one-day workshop for partners and support persons of survivors who oftentimes feel like left out of the conversation around healing and don't have peer support in the community. So we started this program in 2014 with the help of the Ontario Trillium Foundation. The impact of childhood sexual abuse varies from person to person, but oftentimes we do see a lot of survivors who have drug and alcohol use, suicidal thoughts, previous attempts of suicide, anxiety, depression, personality disorders, post-traumatic stress disorder, intensified flashbacks, fear and hypervigilance, part of that, some self-mutilation, cutting, burning behaviors, relationship issues, either due to lack of communication, sometimes sexual dysfunction, or inability to engage in safe and healthy sex with their partners, instability and arguments. Oftentimes survivors do also have issues with anger or rage and being able to regulate emotionally. Social isolation and lack of trust, and not many relationships or friendships they feel are authentic. I've included a more comprehensive list at the link below, so feel free to take a look at that. There's also some really useful information there on what behavior presentations for children who have been sexually abused look like, so I encourage you to take a look at that list. The Gatehouse offers peer-to-peer support group programs for adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse ages 18 plus. And we traditionally start off with phase 1, which is a 15-week group. There's separate groups for men and women. We do offer an all gender identities group as well. The groups meet weekly from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we do offer some groups on a limited basis during the daytime from 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. The women's groups generally meet on Tuesday nights, and sometimes day groups meet Wednesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 2. Men's groups meet Wednesday evenings from 7 to 9, and the all gender identities groups varies depending on the need and the facilitator's availability. Part of the phase 1 program includes talking about things like boundaries and what are the limits that survivors accept and don't accept in their lives in terms of friendships to self and other as well. We talk about shame and guilt and how those two often present in the lives of survivors. We talk about self-esteem issues that survivors may have, and what are some coping techniques or strategies that survivors can use to help them self-regulate and find more meaningful activities or meaningful appreciation for what they have. We do talk about gratitude a lot in our programs as well. We do encourage survivors to reflect upon their feelings and share them if they feel comfortable. Sometimes survivors don't feel comfortable sharing certain things in group, and we invite them to say the word pass, because we want survivors to be able to share their voice. Voice is an integral part of the Gatehouse program. Other topics include the inner child and looking at connection with self at the time of the abuse and after the abuse. And sometimes we talk about how some survivors blame themselves for the abuse or what happened, especially if they returned to the offender at any point in time, or the offender is part of their family and they feel conflicted about having feelings of love or trust for the offender still after many, many years after the abuse has occurred. So we do talk about those instances, and we do talk about shame and guilt and vulnerability and how those areas manifest for the survivor, like invite them into those conversations. We want survivors to be able to feel that they are heard and supported. And oftentimes this is the first time that survivors of sexual abuse are telling their story to somebody, and they're actually trusting the group in a very meaningful way, and it's very transformational. It helps people to actually find what we call, some authenticity within themselves, with their authentic self, really connect with their mind, body, and sometimes people believe in spirit as well. Whatever their beliefs are is acknowledged in the group as well.